he was arrested and tried for treason. Mr. Hitler, do you have anything to say in your defense? Glad you asked. He turned the courtroom into a stage, gave passionate speeches, and the right-wing judges ate it up. They thought he was, quote, pretty impressive. How was the prison environment? Not bad. The room had a garden view and fans sent gifts regularly. How long was your sentence? 5 years. I was out in 9 months. What was a typical day like? Mornings for guests and mail, afternoons for writing. Sounds like an office job. Pretty much. So instead of a life sentence, they just gave him 5 years. And they called it prison to sound tough, but it was basically a 9-month vacation in a hotel-like facility where he leisurely wrote an autobiography detailing his plan to eradicate the Jews before walking out a famous man. Now, after getting out of jail, his political career looked completely finished. The Nazis got just 2% of the vote in 1928. Most Germans thought he was too loud, too extreme, too unhinged.
Noisy.
And then, October 1929 happened. The Wall Street stock market crashed, plunging the US into the Great Depression. And to save itself, the US demanded back all its loans, plus the war reparations from Germany immediately. This fatal blow crushed an already struggling Germany, as unemployment exploded and companies failed overnight, leaving the public with nothing left to lose. Hitler seized the moment and stepped back into the spotlight as a savior. He fired up his entire media machine to brainwash the public, promising to tear up the Treaty of Versailles, revive the economy, bring back jobs, and, of course, give people someone to blame. Starving and desperate, the people had no other choice but to cling to him. In 1928, the Nazi Party held 2% of the vote. By 1932, they were the largest party in Germany. 4 years, that's all it took, all thanks to an economic crisis and a propaganda machine that never slept. He preached the absolute supremacy of German blood, and yet he wasn't even a German citizen. See, in 1925, he voluntarily renounced his Austrian citizenship to dodge the risk of extradition. But naturalizing as a German back then was extremely difficult. So, despite his fanatical obsession with German purity, he stayed legally stateless until just before the election. But hey, the law is just a joke when you've got people on the inside. Thanks to the backing of the Minister of the Interior, who happened to be a Nazi Party member, Hitler conveniently got his German citizenship just in time to enter the big race. Convinced he was basically unstoppable at this point, Hitler ran for president. And lost to Paul von Hindenburg, an old general, massively beloved since World War I. And he didn't take the loss well, wrote a letter demanding the president appoint him chancellor instead. Hindenburg refused. He could see exactly what Hitler was. Look, old man, you're not getting any younger. How about this? You keep being president, figurehead and all, and I'll take the chancellor off your hands. Cute. Come back when your mustache can vote.
Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiners war ein Befehl!
So instead he appointed Franz von Papen, which only made things worse. The Nazis made governing basically impossible. Blocking everything, threatening mass protests, even threatening to take their own lives until the job looked radioactive to anyone else. Eventually, von Papen, convinced he could keep Hitler on a leash, whispered into Hindenburg's ear, "Just appoint him. I'll control him like a puppet." So on January 30th, 1933, Hindenburg reluctantly appointed Hitler as chancellor. Reluctantly, meaning he knew it was a terrible idea and did it anyway. Thanks, Paul. Millions of citizens cheered his arrival, believing he'd rescue them from their misery. But little did they know, their worst nightmare was just getting started. And being chancellor wasn't enough. He wanted everything, and he got it all completely legally. No tanks, no coup, just paperwork, manufactured fear, and one very conveniently timed fire. In February 1933, the German parliament building burned down. Now, many historians believe the Nazis staged it themselves, but either way, Hitler immediately played the victim and blamed the communists. And he used that fear to pressure Hindenburg into signing an emergency decree, tossing thousands of political opponents into concentration camps. With his opposition safely locked away, he pushed the Enabling Act through the remaining parliament in March 1933. And this single piece of legislation handed him the power to pass laws entirely on his own, legally cementing his status as a dictator. But he still had one problem. See, absolute power always comes with cold-blooded betrayal. The stormtroopers, the street thugs who'd bled to help him rise, had now become a thorn in his side, wanting their forces to replace the actual German army, and the professional military absolutely despised these thugs and hinted at a mutiny. Naturally, Hitler needed the backing of the real army far more than a gang of street brawlers, but he was still afraid to cross them, because the SA's numbers were massive. So, how did you resolve the deadlock between the army and your brown shirts? Smoke them. On a night in June 1934, a dark purge history calls the Night of the Long Knives, Hitler ordered the mass assassination of the SA's top commanders. And with his internal rivals eliminated, his biggest remaining obstacle, President Hindenburg, conveniently passed away in August 1934. Hitler immediately passed a law merging the offices of Chancellor and President into one. And to legitimize this absolute power, he held a heavily rigged national plebiscite where severe intimidation ensured nearly 90% voted in favor. Grateful for the recent purge of the SA, the German army now swore on oath of absolute personal loyalty, directly to their new Führer. And just like that, Germany was officially swallowed whole by the Nazi Party. From that moment on, Hitler was the law. And here lies a stark reality. The man who signed orders throwing thousands into concentration camps didn't drink, didn't eat meat, and didn't smoke. Well, his own party had a little side hustle selling cigarettes. Turns out that's easier said than done. Introducing Sturm, the party's official cigarette. Producer, S.A., inspired by Hitler. Mission, earning money to support the party. I don't actually smoke. You do now. I really don't. 1 pack a week. It's not a request. No, Turns out, no smoking had some exceptions. The list of his admirable qualities ended exactly there. What followed was the darkest era in human history. Free press, gone. Free speech, gone. Anyone who opened their mouth got one outcome. And now the time had come for Hitler to unleash his brutality on the people he hated most. The Jews. He stripped them of all human rights, boycotted them, and forced them into concentration camps where they were worked to death, starved, and executed. Roughly 6 million Jewish men, women, and children were systematically murdered by this killing machine. And Hitler's terrifying power didn't just lie in guns and bullets, it lay in the art of brainwashing. He created the Hitler Youth, training boys and girls from 10 to 14. Boys were molded into heartless war machines, girls were taught their only purpose was to produce pure-blooded German warriors. And many returned from state training camps pregnant, and if their parents dared object, the children themselves would threaten to report them to the Gestapo. That machine, plus Hitler's foreign policy, did exactly what it was always going to do, and the world went to war for the second time in 30 years. This time, worse, bigger, more deadly. Now, Hitler had convinced himself, and an entire nation, that this would be a 1,000-year empire. Eternal, unstoppable. But the reality, his 1,000 years lasted a mere 12. And the bill came out to over 85 million lives. Fast forward to early 1945. Gone were the grand military parades cheering for the Führer. Nazi Germany was now nothing but a ruined wasteland engulfed in flames, and as the Soviet Red Army closed in from the east and Allied forces pushed in from the west, instead of stepping up to face justice for his crimes, the man who'd promised 1,000 years of glory was hiding underground in a concrete bunker. And in that bunker, he did something nobody expected. He got married to Eva Braun, the woman who stayed by his side in the shadows for years. The wedding took place exactly 40 hours before they both ended it all, the shortest honeymoon in history. Before he died, he ordered his body burned to avoid being paraded by the Red Army, and when the Soviet soldiers burst in, they found only a charred, unrecognizable corpse. In the end, his identity could only be confirmed from his dental records. Now, there are plenty of theories about whether he really died or not, but today, DNA testing on his remains confirms it. Hitler did commit suicide in that bunker in 1945.